taking it all in. That's all I can say. So,
What's the deal with the 8?
that's a playing that system typo.
Oh.
But you keep studying. You keep studying.
You keep sending me.
That's what it was. Now, can anybody remember from 2 weeks ago? That's stretching your brain strings real far, tight. But can anybody remember from 2 weeks ago what we studied or covered?
I wasn't here.
Furniture and steward.
Okay. Anything else? Anything? Anybody? Anything we covered 2 weeks ago? Sharon's working on it. So, we'll first look at the section piece that we did cover 2 weeks ago about contributing cheerfully and regularly to the support of the ministry, the expense of the church, relief of the poor, and the spread of the gospel. And we got to talking about the need of contributing to the support of the ministry, if you all recall. And covered several things. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get back to where I'm at here. And tonight we're going to move on. So we've got a new section piece of the covenant on your paper tonight that you'll be able to use moving forward tonight. And our next piece of the covenant that we're looking at is going to be specifics to, first word of this says what? We. Who is the we? Huh? Okay. Those that are in covenant as a member of the body. But in all parts, biblically, any child of God is the we. Now, we are studying specifically down to what our church covenant says, but all of the church covenant that we utilize and have in place is all biblically backed. So it's kind of like for Ginger and them, instead of getting one advertisement with the same information, they make 5 different ones that says the same thing. One of them catches. So when we have the covenant structure, we said that the reason for the covenant being created back many years ago was because why? I'm really going back in the past and stretching your brain here. Well, why did somebody at some point in time create the covenant that we have established and in action now? What happened to you all? I've got a referral to a specialist for mental health and memory care. There's memory care facilities I can refer everybody to if you keep proving this out. Huh? Sharon says, sign her up. She's ready. So, huh? Somebody said they'll go. In other words, in simple English layman terms, this became created when so many came into the Baptist faith beyond multiple other denominational beliefs, culturally coming from other places, and as there became a huge saturation in the Baptist church as it was founded and created, they found that things were so anomalous between every church. There was just so much different. One little piece here, one little piece there. And so then came the covenant in which that gave something abounds to face some similarities and as well as a structural frame, as we called it, that we bind to. And it kind of frames us up into our in how that we ourselves are established, created, and how we operate. Now, tell me tonight, what's the meaning of this word?
Study.
Okay. Anybody else? What does this word mean? Remember, committed. Remember, now the piece of the puzzle tonight, the covenant we're doing, is to engage. We also engage to maintain family and secret devotions. What does devotion mean?
I would say will and love.
Okay. Anybody else? Let's start with the word devotion for a moment. Just look at it for just a second. This is the state of being dedicated, consecrated, or solemnly set apart for a particular purpose. External worship, acts of religion, performance of religious duties, prayer to the Supreme Being. A Christian will be regular in his morning and evening devotions, an act of reverence, respect, or ceremony, earnestness, ardor, eagerness, disposal, power of disposing of, or state of dependence is part of our devotion to God. Now, if we just break it down a little farther and go back to the original word in devotion and just look at devote for a second, it even defines this even more in depth: to appropriate by vow, set apart, dedicate, solemn act, consecrate, to give up wholly, to addict, to direct the attention wholly or chiefly, to attach as to devote oneself to science, devote ourselves to our friends or to their interest or pleasure, to give up, to resign, as aliens were devoted to refine, the city was devoted to the flames, to doom. This is another example of devoting, and then to execrate. We have one thing to pick from the word devote, and it is that it becomes wholly the majority of our efforts and action, or as some of them say, in the matter of they give all of their attention to the matter. Now, looking at this part of the covenant tonight, and I want you just to think about something for a minute because I have a few questions for you. But if you ever thought about the fact that in our lives, and I'm not going to even spread out to anybody specific or anything in any place, but in our lives, there is a family dynamic. Everybody is part of a family, whether it's by blood relation or any other acquaintance or even being adopted. There is a dynamic of being part of a family. And engaging that family is where we're at tonight with dealing with the covenant, of dealing with the things that influence. You know, in America, that we have some things that's pretty backwards now and more pronounced than it was when Roger and Robert were kids a few years ago. One of those examples is that how many, now this is a good one, and I really like stopping on this for a minute. How many children are influencing the parents? Tons. Whoa. That's what I say. When I see a child driving the decisions of the parent, when I see the children driving the influence of the parent, I've got the flag right there. I already know we're starting down the wrong road. First thing in the family dynamic is when the children is the one influencing the parent. I'll give you a simple church example because we're getting ready to have Bible school. Bible school comes, kids come to church, kids get saved, kids get in church. Who comes next? The parents. The influence is reversed automatically right there in the wrong order. And I want you to first answer this question for me. What is a disciple? Huh? A follower of Jesus. Where does that start? Where does discipleship start? Where does it begin? Huh? At home, not at church. Discipleship begins at home. That's where the rubber meets the road, is where everything begins. In US, and I'll just give you this as an example, that single parent families has increased quite significantly over the US. And this is a date as of 2024, into 2024. This was examples of how many kids are growing up in a single parent family. Now, when you look at that, that map tells me one good answer, that Satan's primary attack, everybody says, oh, he's attacking the church. Well, no, he does. But let's back up. Let's just show you a root of the problem. The first place Satan is attacking is the family. That's where the attack really goes down. He can attack the church, but there are 6 other days, not including Sunday, that the family is structured at home and exists. And it don't matter whose family it is. It could be the deacon's family, it could be the pastor's family, it could be the Sunday school teacher's family, it could be the cleaner's family, it could be any of these people's family. It does not matter who Satan does the attacking to. But why is it so important? Now you think about this for yourself. Why is it so important that discipleship would start at home? I'll give you an easy example. Let's start with Bible reference, because I always want us to learn this by the Bible. The first example I pulled when I studied this was a sample in 1 Samuel chapter 1, when the Bible says that the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. Here we have the sons of Eli, and we even find biblically that they were identified. His sons, his children, were priests. Now, how many people do you know today that a man that pastors has a son that preaches? I can point a finger right there. I haven't done it. There's a bunch of Clint Hatfield's dad pastored, still preaches, pastors churches. There's a lot of people that has a child that preaches. That lineage following. God's calling on them people, but we're going to look at some of the place of where that sets itself up and some things that come before God calls them. Eli being the priest, the children being the priest. We look at this, for example, and we go to 1 chapter later. When I got to reading, I jumped over to 1 Samuel chapter 2. And now the sons of Eli were sons of Balaam. They knew not the Lord. Wait a minute. You're telling me that Eli has 2 sons that are priests that they don't even know the Lord. You can pass on your career. You can pass on your occupation. You can pass on religion. But what you can't pass on is Jesus. Can't pass on Jesus. You can pass your career on, your occupation, but you can't pass on Jesus. We're going to look at that and see why that is. And in chapter 3, I want to jump down to this. In that day I'll perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. Let me ask you a question. Parents in today's time, this current time we're in, are so busy that they don't even know what's going on in the lives of the children that live under their roof. Has anybody in here, especially that's got a child or a younger person in your family, have you ever experienced a time when you were the last to find out something about your own child? Haven't? Yeah. There's times when the parent is the last person to find out something about their child. Something they did, something good, bad, whatever it was, it don't matter. But sometimes the parent is the last person to find out something about their child. Here's another example, Deuteronomy 6. These are all the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land whither you go to possess it. Here God's telling Moses that you need to teach and prepare the people. They're getting close to entering into the promised land. And this is the final journey moving in. And God tells Moses in this very specific part of chapter 6 of Deuteronomy that there is a command for the people to be taught and that they be prepared. And if we look at a little bit more, he says that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that you may increase mightily as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Most young people, and I'll just say this, but we've got adults alike, but one of the worst things that young people does not like is rules. Is that true? They don't like rules. Actually, the more rules you give them, I think the more they try to break. And the adults, we have a lot of adults that don't like rules. Take you to the jail in Tazewell, there's almost 400 of them right here in one county. There's about 200 right now in Pine. So just to give you an estimate, there are adults that also doesn't like to follow rules. But he says that one of the things about your days being prolonged, and he also tells them to observe to do it, that it may be well with you. Look at what it says in the next few verses. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. One of the biggest things of an impact on a child's life, or a family member, or anybody else, is the fact that we need to remember that we, us, that all the church, is a model. You are a visible model representing the church, a Christianity's lifestyle. All of these things you are. One of the things that they call a parent is known as a role model. A model of a father is a role model. And one of the things I'm going to have, let's have Robert. Robert, look up 1 Corinthians 11. Give us that verse just a second. How much impact do you think you're having on your child, even if you don't think they're paying attention?
Well, it is,
Huh?
they may,
Did you think they're not listening?
you know, you think they're not listening,
Yeah.
but they hear.
Yes. How much impact do you think? Huh? He's doing 1 Corinthians 11 and 1. How much impact do you think you have on your child?
We have a lot.
Huh?
I think we have a lot.
A ton. A ton. Think how much exposure they have to watching. Go ahead.
Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ.
Did you all hear that? Be ye followers of me, as I am also of Christ. Paul wrote this. Very good example for us all right now in the position that we're in this day and time. That Paul said that you follow me as I am modeling the image of who? Jesus. I am the image bearer of Christ. Be ye followers of me as I am of Christ. There is a very famous, we hear it in church here, we hear it in Sunday school and different places, but a very famous and very applicable statement is true to this part of the covenant tonight. And most of everybody in here has heard it, of being careful how you live. You will be the only Bible some people will ever read. I'm going to give you 3 letters tonight about being a model. Now, I'll remind you that if we go back to the covenant wording, that the covenant wording tonight is we also engage to maintain family and secret devotions. You know, in order to maintain something, it has to be that. Y'all know that? You can't maintain something that's not in the home, and you can't maintain something that you're not practicing. So, in this instance, I'm going to say it this way. This is my interpretation of how the church covenant puts this. When you join into the church, in covenant with the church, it's already assumed that you are having devotion in your home family, and you're already having secret devotion. And the reason that I say that interpreting the church covenant is because we shouldn't be waiting until we're in covenant with the church to have any devotion with God. When he says that you are to, in Matthew 6, he tells us that we are to have our own devotion. And in 6, he also tells us about praying in secret. This is all things God's already commanded before you ever come into covenant with the church. I'll give you these 3 letters. We're going to look at these tonight. These are 3 easy things to question about your job as a model in your home. The first thing is we're going to look at MRI. MRI tonight. And the 3 things about being a model in this conversation is being a mother, a relationship, and being intentional. And in Mark chapter 3, these 2 verses show that he ordained the 12 that they should be with him and that he might send them forth to preach and to have power to heal sicknesses and to cast out devils. These 12 disciples that he ordained, that they should be with him and maintain bearing his image tonight. Let's see here. Ginger, give us 1 Corinthians 15:33. And here's one of the things I've thought about a lot. In this Mark chapter 3, these 2 verses at the bottom, I really find this applicable, but I don't want to tell you why until Ginger reads this. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Tell us what that verse says. 15 and 33. That's not it. 1 Corinthians 15:33. What does it say?
Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners.
Evil communications corrupt good manners. And here in chapter 3 of Mark, we find how that the Lord had them that they should be with him. Should be with him. Our devotion is between us and who? God. Our communication, that line of constant communication, should be between us and who? God. And in that part, we know why that Paul wrote, evil communications corrupt good manners. My question first to you all tonight is this. How do you keep in communion with God? Okay. What else?
Study the word.
Okay. What else?
Pray.
Okay. What else? Any other answers you give me, I'll take them. Give me some good ones. How do you keep in communion with God? It is said in church all over the land that people get out of fellowship, out of the communication with the church, or out of their communion with God, communicating. I want to ask you another question before we go further about being a model tonight. This one's another way that the covenant lines you up by the Bible. And this is the big question for next month. Are you making any progress? How many parents in 2026 are failing at something with their children, but they never change it? How many parents do we see that there is a problem in the home or an issue in the home, but they never make any efforts to change anything? How much progress are we making in being a model? We need to know. Here's the way I look at this. All right, this has always been that thing. When I went through school, the first day that we went in there, the guy that taught most of our medical part of the portion before, and even the doctor that taught us, his very thing to us was this: He says, if I teach you nothing but what I know, you'll never know no more. He said, but if I teach you enough to start, to get you started, you have to continue learning. You are a lifelong learner. See, things will progress. Time will progress. Technology progresses. Medicine progresses. There will always be changes that I'm not going to be here to teach. And because of that, you have to learn now that you need to know more. Who do you need to know more of before you're really getting to be a model?
Lord.
The Lord. You need to know Jesus more every day so that we make sure that the representing model to the children, family, whoever's watching us is becoming more like him. Paul said, be a follower of me because I'm trying to replicate the image and more of a model of what you should be following. This is one of the things that I see a lot of, and I've always seen this work in a lot of people's lives, but this is a good analogy for you tonight. When you first get saved, God sets a fire in your heart. Whose job is it to keep the fire burning? Your fire, your job. Modeling is not perfection. Being a model for the church, being a model role in your family, being a model to your home and your coworkers and whatever else, that is not being perfect. We're not looking for any perfection, but we are looking for an authentic model. What does it mean to be authentic? Real. You got to be what you say you are. You got to do what you say you do. And does everybody make mistakes? Sure do. All this stuff that we get involved in, everybody makes mistakes. We got to be authentic about who we really are and then go on from there. Here's another statement that I want us to see tonight as part of our covenant that we are looking at. You must be what you want your children to be because they will become what you are. Anybody disagree with that? You must be what you want your children to be because they will become what you are. This is very important because of the next part of some of the MRI that we're looking at tonight. Here's another question I want to ask you. Who, those of you who have kids or young people in the house, who are your kids spending time with? Huh? She's a lonely child. Who is your kid spending time? Who is your children that you know in your family, whatever? Who are they spending time?
The friends.
Friends, school, after school.
Computer.
Yeah. And one of the things we're working on in these things tonight is the relationship. The power of influence is proportionate to the closeness of the relationship. The closer the child is to its parent, the less influence from its peers. Remember that. The closer the child is to the parent, the less influence it is by the peers. More peer-oriented children are, and this has actually been proven by many different studies, that the more peer-oriented children are, the less that they will be influenced by their children or by their parents. The more that they go with the friends and take the friends' advice and run with the friends. You know people's children, and some of you might have been this at one point in time. How many people's children spent more time away than they do at home? People know people's kids that's gone away from the house more than they are at the house. Where's the influence? Huh? Yeah, but you was inside. They had you locked in. They couldn't let you out of the house.
He never gave me the leave.
Well, actually, you were so far away from civilization, it'd been a long walk.
It was a long way.
Yeah. But think about it for a minute. If these kids that you see and people that they're running the roads, they're somebody's house all the time, they're never at home, so on and so forth, where is the influence coming? And then this is the next big one. And here's what I have found, and this has caused a lot of things to shake its ground, is how many kids do you know right now that would go share something that they're struggling with to a friend before they would come to their parent? Majority, I think. would go tell their friend of something they're struggling with. How many kids that have thoughts or threats of suicide or threats of killing people, bombing the school, shooting up the school, how many of those things are caught at the school by their peers, not at home by the parents? Where's the influence? The influence is the people they're telling to. They're not talking to mom and dad. What's the problem there? What's the real problem there? What are we not fostering when a child goes to its peers than to its parent? The relationship. We disciple people in this church by multiple faucets. One of those being tonight. You come in here to learn something that the Bible teaches. People come to church, Sunday school, various things we have. We disciple people by these things that we do. But once that we do that relationship fostering here, then people go out to their homes. What kind of relationship do they have at their home? You know that it's interesting that good results seldom happen by chance. They are a byproduct of intentionality. Your relationship in your home with your family should be purposefully deliberate. How many parents are just living life haphazardly? Random. Whatever comes, they deal with it. Whatever goes, they deal with it. They're just haphazardly living their life versus living it with a purpose. How much time do you have with your child? There's none of you know. You could be dead before your child reaches the age of 20. You do not know how much time you have to be the model and the influence. So therefore, living life with a purpose, to foster a relationship, to be the one that gets the sole majority of attention. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a child having friends or peers. There's nothing wrong with that. But God instituted the family in a home. That being the root of where the relationship status should be. If the child has something really bad happen to them, who's the first people that come to? Huh? Mom and dad. But when they're thinking about doing something, considering whether they want something, considering if something's right or wrong, who will they go to? That's where the relationship distance is normally at, is the randomness of how that goes. You think about the fact that when you leave okay, let me give y'all a question. How many in here are really good at building a fire? Sharon can burn it down. Anybody else in here good at building a fire? All right. Huh? No, just build a fire. Just get a good fire going. Yeah. So when you build this fire, now, we got to be careful in the campgrounds because if you bring certain wood in, they think it's going to kill the forest. But when you build your fire, okay, how long will that fire burn before it goes out?
How much fuel it takes.
Okay, well, just say a normal size fire. How long will that fire burn? Yeah. You may get a couple hours, depending on the wood and whatever else. You might get some time. But one of the main key elements in a godly home is this right here. You come to church, I'm going to give you the analogy. You come to church on Sunday. All right, we got it built up good. Nothing in a family or secret devotion goes on Monday and even Tuesday. Tuesday night, this is what you look like. This is what you're down to. That's all that's left. There has to be some time where everybody is brought into one place at one time. And one of the things that the atmosphere, I can flip this and take it backwards for you. This is Saturday. Let's just flip it backwards. And first it's Tuesday. This is what it looks like Tuesday after Sunday. Let's go to Friday and Saturday. And here's what the atmosphere that goes on in the church begins at home. You know that? The atmosphere in church prevails by what begins in the home. If there is no devotion or fire being kept and built up, there is very little in what? In the church. You cannot be on fire on Sunday from 10 to noon and not the rest of the week. It don't work that way. There is nobody in here being given a spout switch, valve, anything else that you can just turn it on at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and then at 12 you just reach over and shut it off, and nothing till the next Sunday. It don't work like that. Life does not work that way. God, number two, does not work that way. And when we look at ourselves, if this is us on Tuesday, we need to start feeding the fire on Monday morning. If this is us on Friday and Saturday, we need to get to doing a lot better all week long to keep it built and going, so that when we come in Sunday morning, we're not dull and dim with just a little flicker in the flame. You know, huh?
Sitting there like a knot.
Yes, and the Bible says that you are not to quench what? The Spirit. You are not to quench the Spirit. That is a no-no in your life, Monday through Sunday, then more than it is even on Sunday in a church service, is if you quench it and the Spirit's moving in your life, if you do not keep devotion in your own home and in your own life privately, then what flame do you have? What model are you given, or what witness do you have? Here's something I want you to think about. Devotion is the activity that sets the tone for our day, for our life, for the way we use our time, energy, and talents. It reveals that to which we are devoted, given, driven with a singleness of heart and determination of the mind. Devotion, which includes learning to pray and teaching our children to pray, is the secret to overcoming the barriers that seek to impede and hinder. Do you know that, how many of you can remember in your home everybody kneeling and praying? Yeah? Anybody remember that in their house? That everybody prayed in the house together? How many in the house can remember hearing a parent pray in the house? How many remember that? Yeah? So, the first greatest gifts that you can give your child is teaching them how to pray. Starting with us, how to pray. Prayer in the schools has been a great aspect. It has turned into nothing but a political issue, and there's all these differences about prayer in schools. It goes on all the time everywhere. Differences in opinion and all that. But it's ironic that we would attempt to control a sphere over which we don't have any authority. We want to fight the fact that they don't let them pray in schools, but we won't fight for the fact of teaching them to pray at the house. And see, that's a reverse problem we've got, is when we don't do that. We don't control the sphere that God's given us in our home. And then we can't expect children to learn to pray at school. I'm sorry, that's not their job. That's not the school's job to teach your child to pray. I don't agree with taking prayer out of schools, but that's not their job to teach your child to pray. The church and the families within the church can and should be claiming this responsibility. How does the church teach the child or people to pray? By example? Any other ways that the church can teach children and people how to pray?
In my children's church, I just say, I ask them if they would like to try to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And get them enticed that way. And I show them how to do it, get assistants to try it.
Mm-hmm. Sunday schools is another example. Classes where you've got kids specifically in that environment. That's one of the things that we look at. Other thing, I wrote this down a couple of weeks ago so I wouldn't forget it for this part. Steve, we're going back to Steve preaching something. So I'm going to make you remember something for a minute. Get ready. But Steve preached about the thermostat. He didn't tell us if it was a Nest or a Honeywell. I didn't hear a brand, so I don't know what brand he used. But he did preach on being a spiritual thermostat. Do you know that the devotion is the spiritual dimension of the home? that the thermostat is to the physical environment. Your spiritual thermostat controls your physical environment. If you let anger build up and you don't take care of it, or whatever's burdening you down or getting you in troubled and away from being able to be where you need to be with the Lord, if you let that stuff do that, that's the thermostat that sets the tone for the rest of the day. If you get up mad, what are you going to be? You're going to be mad all day. If you get up and you're crying, sad and upset and doom and gloom, guess what? You're going to be all day. You're going to say, Lord, somebody dealt me a bad hand. I've been dealt bad handed. Think about the fact that you get set. Your thermostat, your spiritual thermostat sets a lot of tone about where you're going. Around the table and in many informal family settings is where the meaning of life and values are taught. People learn just from their family and their parents about fearing God and giving and receiving respect and setting their goals and learning the value of work and persevering and things like that. But a home in which sincere devotion to God is the normative and permeating influence will not promote or bear contrary behavior. Cast your bread upon the waters, or it will not what? What's the Bible say? Cast your bread upon the waters. It will not return void after many days. It will not do it. See, the home and where we're sprinkling out the breadcrumbs, as I like to call it, is the climate where you think about it. God forbid some things, and this is how your thermostat can get set. We're going to go back to Steve preaching. Your thermostat can get set by a few things, and I thought about this. One of the things that's good to deal with everything at the start of your day, Tony sings a song called When I Start My Day With You, There's Nothing That I Can't Do. One of the things you should think about is that the climate of being in devotion with God and communication with Him, He forbids certain activities and attitudes. God won't have it. He won't have you, He won't deal with certain attitudes and certain things that people are doing. What is and is not permitted in the home are clearly set by God when there is a devotion to Him. And there is space for evil to enter in the home when devotion to God is not kept in the home. That's giving space. The Bible says you do not give place to the devil. You don't give the devil any place to be able to do anything. Now, we see one of the very famous things tonight. We're looking at maintaining family and secret devotion. And the Bible speaks a lot about dealing with the secret devotion. And I'm going to put it to you in my perspective that, first of all, the Bible says that the man is the what? The head of the house. And he sure ain't no role model or leader if he ain't talked to God before he tells the family. Is that not right? If Roger, what did the Bible say about the man?
As the head of the home.
Head of the house. Yes. And so I say that from interpreting the Bible and what I believe, that the man of the house cannot lead the home in any devotion or being a model if he himself has not talked to God. It will not work. I want you to see the very specific section so well known in the Bible about the secret devotion. I'll let you see this. In Matthew 6, he says this, and I want you to notice there's a lot of things people miss or forget when they think of this part of the Bible. But he says, take heed that you do not your alms before men, to be seen of them, otherwise ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But when thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, for they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut the door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. But when you pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before you ask. You know what the number one problem about secret devotion is? In 2026, the number one problem that Christians have about praying secret devotions with God is they'll say that they don't have time. I cannot tell you how many people will tell you that they don't pray like they should, or don't pray in secret, or don't do the family devotion. They do none of that. And their simple answer is that they don't have time. And that right there tells me the lack of knowledge that they really don't know about their life. So, since all of us are created in the image of God, and God holds every breath that you've taken up until whenever your last one is, we should know where the power and the vitality of life truly comes from. And this does not, if you think about it, this discipline doesn't so much take time. It makes time. Moses, when God told Moses to teach to prepare the children of Israel to know the statutes of God, the laws of God, the commandments, what was at the end of that verse? So that your days may be prolonged. See, this lack of knowledge of the fact that I don't have time. No, it doesn't do that. It's not that you're taking time to talk to God. It's you're making time for God. And for time spent in your devotion returns. He is going to reward thee openly. Now think about that for a moment. This centeredness, the focus, and the cure for people drifting so much is what a day repays in an investment. So basically saying that these moments spent with the Lord are actually paying you more money. You know, the credit card companies give you rewards, cashback rewards. The more places you use your credit card, the more they give you back. That is the same principle God already instituted by saying that the things that you pray to me in secret, I will reward thee openly. One of the things that we look at in our lives is that the reward, we think in our minds that we're not going to see anything in a reward. But one of the benefits of devotion is very plain and simple. People devote their house to God to be a place and an environment where that they can teach their children. You know what homes with children in it that are having active family devotion in them? You know what is not a problem in those homes? Anybody know the word? Huh? Discipline. See, if the child already knows that doing something is wrong by God's standard, and they come back, they can be constrained when they need to be brought back in line. The retreat to the secret closet is manifested in the blessedness of a life where the fire is kept burning. Who orders your footsteps? Yeah. God orders your footsteps. If you are haphazardly just living life on the whim, whatever comes, I'll deal with it. Whatever I run into and have to deal with, I'll do it. I'm just haphazardly living my life as a model before my home, my family, my children. If that's what I'm doing, the problem I've got with that is the Lord has ordered your footsteps, and you're not on the path. Way off. You find all of the examples, okay? In the trials and tragedies of life, there's no coincidence that though walking through the valleys of the shadow of death, there is what? No need to fear evil. That's teaching. And the one that gives us that fire, and the one that gives us the things to fuel our fire, is spiritually. You think about it, all of the things that we get comes directly from God. I have one last question for you. And this is a good one. This is a good question for everybody. I always ask this for people. I see families that try to leave a big inheritance and a big family name and leave all these great things for their family when they pass on later on down the road when they plan on dying. They think I'll have all this stuff that I'm going to pass on and give to the kids and whatever else they have. But the question is, are you leaving a legacy that they'll follow? Are you leaving a legacy that they will model after? Now, I can say this probably with no problem. Roger and Robert, Courtney, all these people that has a mother that's passed, still probably does some things just like they did. There's things that you will still go behind and do just like your mom did. Or you will recall something mom said or done, that something they taught you that you will model after. And it's not money. It's not going to be some fortune, fame, estate, business, whatever else claim they give. See, all that can go away. In an instant, God can just remove that, take that every bit away. So what are we leaving our younger generation? What legacy are we leaving? You know, we don't teach enough about dealing with conflict in 2026 as we need to. And as much war and battle is going on all over our land about being free and being liberal and allowing all these things to go on that we obviously know is not right. All of this battle and everything that's created is what's causing a shift. If you're not taught what's right and wrong, who are you asking that? When they decide that the boys can go in the girls' bathroom at the school, what's the child taking the information from? Who are they learning from that that's right or wrong? You think about that. Where is the source of information? Where is their model being given and taught to them to be given their teachings of what they should know right from wrong? We also engage to maintain. We should already have these things in place, in action, taking place. I read an article recently of a parent that's got like 3 or 4 kids. They're all over the age of 13 or 14. And they still have supper every evening at the home, at the table. And even though 1 or 2 of those kids have a job and sometimes aren't there because of work, it doesn't matter if 1 or 4 kids can be there. They have dinner at the table every evening at a certain time. Guess what is not allowed at that table? The cell phone. The distraction. The distraction. How many people would love to go back and have another table conversation with mom and dad about something they deal with now that they wished they paid attention to a few years ago? There's tons of kids that wishes they could go back and do that. One of the things that those parents implemented, and I was reading on that, was that they implemented the forced effort that there will be no distractions at the table for whatever brings the day and whatever they're discussing. And so because of that, they have found that that is when they have their devotion time, is also right after they have supper, is when they have family devotion time. And they get the opportunity undividedly to teach their children, and their children have become very open to talking, communicating, and asking questions to the parents about guidance and getting help and things they're dealing with in life. But the question comes down tonight of what are you leaving? What are you leaving? The people that's watching you at church on Sunday, at the restaurant after church, all week long while you're at work, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, what are you leaving? What model are you putting behind them that you are leaving in place as a legacy for people to follow? Anybody got anything to add tonight? Anybody?
talking about people being taught in home, devotion to home stuff. And like I said in John, it is written in the prophets that they should be all taught of God, every man therefore that hath heard and hath learned before it cometh to them. And like I say in Romans, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. In today's modern society, even in Christian homes, to bring up a child in devotion, stuff like that, the world and a lot of Christians look on it as a stigma. You know, you're not letting the child be individuals. You're not letting them be their own person. You're restraining them, and therefore you're doing them harm. In other words, you just gotta let them kind of just figure it out on their own, not realizing you're just giving them to death.
Yeah.
Because without any instructions, they're just wandering. They're just, like I say, who is teaching?
Yeah.
They'll be the schools. The schools will step in,
Mhm.
and that's where they get their education. That's where they're getting their beliefs.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's such a stigma way it used to be when your parents know what you was doing, who you was with, and who you could or could not be with. That's just wrong in today's society. Because they gotta grow themselves. They gotta learn and grow within themselves, and they're just giving them over to the devil.
The neighbors told on me too,
Uh,
the neighbors.
yeah,
I mean, excuse me, it's like the mother can't band together and watch over all the kids. You're doing something wrong, my mother good before I got through doing what was wrong.
They already got that?
yeah, not anymore. It don't seem like. Like I say, I've even seen where kids and the way the parents' way of thinking about just one thing and it touched on in that article in that covenant about drinking. The thing is now, yeah, my child drinks, but they're drinking at home, so I know what they're doing to them. You know, I mean, that's the way society is. Yeah, my child drinks, beer and stuff, but they only drink it at home. They're underage, they're underage, but I let them have it because at least I know what they're doing. Like that really makes a lot of sense.
Trying to
We
just,
have state laws and stuff that when you fix the cameras right now too, they take the power of the parents away. People don't really see that as a state law. It certainly is.
oh yeah, definitely. Anybody else got anything? How much, y'all tell me this, I'll measure this off the range. How much family devotion needs to go on in a home in 1 week? Ginger says day. What do you think? There's no right or wrong answer.
I think it needs to be like, at least 30 minutes, an hour every day in your home, at least. And then in your car, you should listen to, trust the pastor or somebody coming, that needs to be continuous because Satan's attacks are continuous. So you can get off by yourself if you're close to the Lord a lot. You get off by yourself just 30, 40 minutes. You're with the wrong person, or you can tell. I mean, you feel like this is not where I need to be, or the thoughts getting crazy. You're like, I gotta go back.
Yeah.
Gotta pray. I gotta get focused back on the Lord. Things are higher. Things are more wonderful. It's just too easy to get away from it.
You take it like Paul said, he follows me and now Christ. Should be 24/7 if you're gonna be an example. Cause like I say, like I don't say, what you do speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. And they will, children will do just to follow exactly what you do.
Yeah.
But they'll just go a little worse.
Yeah. The parents, if y'all ever watch the funny things online where the parent has to live that moment of doing as I say and not as I do, you know, the model effort of doing as I say and not as I do, because they'll go do something and you say, no, you can't do that, or you punish them, and they say, well, you do it, or mom does it, or dad does it. You know, I wonder today in churches, just easily example of how many young people we could take in churches that had some temptation of something the devil would throw at them. You know, addiction is a very easy cause, especially in this class, that it only started with one time. Addiction started with the first time you tried something. But what convicts that child or young person or adult to know what's going to happen if they do it? I'm not as worried about them knowing every single little piece of things they may encounter that they don't know about. How many of y'all in here right now could tell the difference between cocaine, methamphetamine, and elephant tranquilizer? Chris could. He can tell it like a child. I need to take him to the drug task force. I'm telling you. The rest of us, it just looks like something, I don't know. If Roger thinks it's good and it's sugar, he might start tasting it and see what it does. See, that's the lure of the devil. Roger likes to eat. So, the lure of the devil is Roger likes to eat.
You like to man?
Well, no, we hope not. But how many young people or children in a church, any church, could that very presenting thing happen? And they would not be convicted enough to know that I need to go to mom or dad. I'm gonna go ask them before I do this. Instead of everybody and friends is sitting around saying, "No, go ahead and try it. It's all right. If anything happens, we're right here. I got you.
I got your back.
That's what you hear all the time. I got you." Well, that's a funny thing because most people I go get that overdose don't have nobody. They all because they don't want to get caught, and they're gone. And you know the funny thing of this is the fact that all those peers that we take all of our influence from, or some do take influence from, most of the time when it really gets down to the wire and grit, or you're really in need of help or trouble, where are they? They're nowhere to be found. Can't find them, and they won't answer their phone. You run into that. All in which, if you called mom or dad and said, "I need you," what's going to happen? They're on their way. They're on their way. I'll never forget the thought of the fact of how influence on children comes, and a lot of it is by peer pressure and different things like that. But how much of that families are protecting their children by no exposure? This is the number 2 problem. Families will not tell their child reality of what's out in the world, trying to protect them. But the minute that you have it come to your child, they now don't know. They've not been explained to understand the consequence because they were protected or guarded, shielded from those things. Well, they need to know that the devil's out there working real good to prepare something for them just out 17, 18, 19 years old. College, wherever they go, just let them, they need to know before they get there. Because that day's going to come, and the influence of who's influencing them is going to route right back to that model that they follow, that model that they have. Anybody else got anything to say?
Like the other night said, you know, it's things that, like say, we never did think about these things in our time.
No,
These cell phones.
you didn't have it.
And she said, like she said, you can get them now and just find out how to commit suicide.
Yes, it will.
I mean,
It's
just,
not the cell phone's awful, but even their psychiatrists, all these SSRI medications. I mean, everybody does one thing to this one thing to that one. I mean,
Yep.
It's just like,
Yep.
and most of these school shootings, those children were on, had been on SSRIs for years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Huh? Yeah. I've always said for people and parents that if you don't want your child in your footsteps at any time, then you must be changing it now. If you don't want your child doing what you have done or are doing, then you better be getting it lined out and straightened right now. Because that's where all the watching, the role model, everything is coming from. It's all being monitored directly by what they see and what you do. If parents have no, this is something we've dealt with right here in the church. Steve can tell you, we've dealt with this right here in the church. Do you know that we have had children that have wanted to come to church and the parents would not come or bring them because they didn't feel like it? If a child of a person in this church told me that they wanted to come, but they couldn't get mom or dad or anybody to bring them, what is that telling me? What does that tell me?
They have no devotion.
Huh?
The parent has no devotion to God.
Monday through Saturday, there's something like it. There's definitely something lacking Monday through before we ever get to Sunday church. There's something majorly lacking, big time. And I can tell you, Steve can tell you that's really happens. Seen it. It's happened. I wonder how much that happens all over the land of kids that are trying to. There you go, influencing the parents. The child's trying to influence the parent about coming to church. The parent's giving some lame excuse that won't hold water as to why they're not going to go today. I'm tired, or I don't feel like it, or we can go next week, or I'm going to do this or do that. And that's the model they're getting ready to be followed. That's the influence of what's giving them the picture. One thing that Missy said last week about her daughter that committed suicide is that if she was going to say anything to parents going forward, if she was going to say anything to parents about their child, was to be in their business. Be in their business. Know everything they're doing. Know what they're doing on that phone. Know who they're with. It all goes back to the mom. All of it goes back to the mom. Know it, be it, live it, do it, everything, because that's the very thing that you're charged with watching over. But that's also what example that they're following. Anybody else got anything to that?
What was it, what was the name, was it Ichabod that got picked up? Was it Eli's home, not Eli's home, Phineas's home?
One of them.
Basically, it meant that they were destroyed, I mean, they were,
Yeah.
nothing left.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to families.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else got anything to that?